Howdy guys, it's Joe here, and I often get asked the very basic question, how do I play the different characters in this game? A lot of times people are good at a few different characters, and they've watched a lot of guides for a few different characters, but today I want to talk about every single different character and the very basic way to play their playstyle, so that if you ever happen to, have to play the character, if they get into meta, if something changes, if your team really wants you to play a certain character, you can know at least a little bit what to do, or if you just want to get started at a character, you can also know just a little bit of what to do. Again though, this is very basic, this is for the beginner players, or it's just you want to learn a new character, you kind of want to know how a different person plays than you usually play. If you already know someone a lot, this definitely won't be for you, but otherwise, hope you guys can enjoy. Anyways, let's get off to the first person, and of course, before we begin again, these are so many different characters, and I really don't have way too much footage, so I'm just going to be showing one character footage, and just kind of listen to what I'm saying, instead of trying to watch in the footage, as the footage wouldn't really be long enough to me even showing what the character can do anyways. So yeah, anyways, let's get to the first one. And the first one is actually Genji. Now, the main things that I say that you really want to worry about as Genji is make sure that you flank the enemy team and also that you kill the squishies, preferably the healer type of characters in the back line, and don't really focus way too much from the front line. Of course, you can do okay there, but back line is really where you kind of become great at. As well with this, try to, get those squishies, but also try to make sure that you can get your ult and get a really nice disruptive few kill ult. You don't have to get a completely team wipe ult. That's one thing that you do have to remember. Just getting 2 to 3 kills can easily give your team the numbers advantage that they can use to go in to win. Don't be one of those guys that always saves their ult just to get that perfect 6-man ult. Do it when you feel like it's just going to work the best, and try to use it when you're really not like in the middle of combat or in the middle of the enemy team, as you're probably just going to die, honestly. Next, we got McCree, and he is the longer-ish range, I'd say really mid-range, hit scan DPS. Very consistent if you're good at him, and if you're not good at him, you probably shouldn't really be playing the character way too much. He stays mostly behind the Reinhardt shield and tries to stay really nearby there, while doing a ton of damage with his main weapon. As well with this, he uses his ultimate to try to scare away the enemy team, but really you want to stay near your teammates, and don't try to flank way too much. Of course, you can flank a bit, try to get those E's, those right clicks, but staying near your team and behind your tanks is really the way to be most effective. Next, we got Pharah, and she's a kind of difficult one. What I'd say that you really want to focus on is, trying to be in the air and whatever, but try to get picks on the more immobile targets. Mei, McCree, Soldier, Anna, Zen, any of the other tank characters. You can really do that quite well, and mostly with the tanks, you can just shoot them and ignore them and try to blast them out of the ways that they should be being at, and you can kind of just work with the terrain really well. As well with this, if you are playing this character and you do happen to have the enemy team has a lot of snipers, make sure not to peek around corners. Just wait with your team, go behind your tanks. Don't peek around corners if the enemy team has snipers. Well, if they don't have any snipers or anybody with hit scan, you can be somewhat fine, fly in the air and do a lot of damage. Next, there's Reaper, that mainly, again, somewhat like Genji, wants to get behind the enemies and try to gank them, try to get their squishies. You want to try to get behind them, hopefully with your E, with your Shadow Step. As well with this, since a lot of the tanks got nerfed, you can actually melt through a lot of the tanks right now if you're at close range. With that said, you kind of have to flank around the tanks in order to beat them, or you have to go right when your team's going in. Don't try to 1v1 a tank without any other teammates, or if you don't have the advantage and the drop on them, otherwise you can actually lose against a few of the tanks. Other than that though, you just kind of have to rinse, repeat that, save your ultimate until you're above the enemy team, jump down, try to use it. And there's a few strategies like Beyblade that work with that as well, but yeah, he's pretty basic. Next, there's Soldier, one of the easiest characters in the game, and he's another hit scan DPS, but not quite as consistent of a hit scan as McCree, but since his damage is so much higher right now, he's really great. He doesn't take way too much aim, way too much skill to really hit with, and of course he has really great escapes, he has really everything. And yeah, he just has the most DPS of any of the DPS at a middle to far range. Mainly what you want to do with this character, again, similarly to McCree, is to either become way behind your tanks, shoot a medium range, or as well with that, you can kind of flank behind the enemy team. Reaper has to flank all the way around and shoot the opponents right from the back, while a Soldier can kind of flank to the right of a team or to the left of a team and stay still at a distance. It's a little bit different of a flank, but it's something that you can definitely try to go for. As well with this, you probably want to try to get that height advantage with this guy, because when you have the height advantage, you have a huge advantage with this character. Sombra's kind of a different case from a lot of the other characters in the offense role, mainly because of the fact that she's not really a high DPS character, she's more of like a medium DPS character. And I know that's something that may be kind of weird to hear. As well with this, when you're using your shift, you should not really use it to try to sneak behind the enemy supports and just try to kill them and do that as your only job. A lot of the other people can honestly flank a lot better than you. Sure, it might be harder for them to get in the back lines, but if they do, they can do a lot more damage. And honestly, quite a few of the supports can even kind of 1v1 you right now, so that also makes it a little bit painful, and a lot of their healing just kind of counters your gun because it doesn't do way too much burst damage. But with that said, you do have some great things about you. One, you can make sure that you try to hack some of the enemy tanks, especially Reinhardt. That's an amazing hack on your team and can help you go in as a whole team if you're ready. Wait for your team and then go for it. As well with this, probably the most important thing about your entire kit is hacking health packs. Especially on maps like King's Row, where there's 2 to 3 different big health packs, it's definitely the best thing that you can do with your time. Getting those health packs and getting your team tons of regeneration, more than really any support can actually give, plus getting rid of that regeneration from the enemy team completely wrecks them. And if they only have 1 support, getting rid of all that healing kind of makes it impossible to defend and even kind of hard to attack. So yeah, that's probably your main goal. As well with this, make sure to try to communicate your ultimate, as if you use your ultimate and your team doesn't help you, you pretty much just killed yourself and wasted your ultimate and it did nothing. But if you can communicate with voice chat, that's very important. If you can do that, go in, then you can actually win a lot of team fights. It is a kind of short, amount of duration, but if you can go for it at the right time with the right team, it can be kind of nice. With Tracer, we're again getting back to those flanker type of characters, and with Tracer, you want to get into the back line, you want to get right next to the supports, and you want to harass them. Now with that said, you don't always have to kill the enemy supports all the time. Genji's a little bit more reliant on getting a kill to get out, while Tracer, you can just kind of harass them. Getting a kill is preferable, but if you can even just harass them often, it'll take their attention off healing and it'll go towards you, and then your team can get a lot of damage that they aren't healing now, and yeah, it's really great from there. As well with that, if you can try to get a nice ult with the Zarya, if you can try to get a nice ult just on a support, you can also take away healing, make it a 5-to-6 ratio, and you're probably going to win a lot of games from there. So yeah, that's basically it. Next for Bastion, at least in my own opinion, I feel like there's really 2 ways you can play him. The first way is that you're on offense, you're on payload, you go Bastion, you have 4 other tanks protecting you, and you have a support, or maybe 3-to-2, whatever, and then you just try to multi the enemy team, which doesn't work way too much, but it kind of works. But probably the better really thing to do with this guy is to play on 2 CP maps and just stall in a corner. He's really the king of stall. He does get countered by some other people, but if you can just stall back there, he works really well. Before you pick him though, make sure they have protection, make sure they have a lot of tanks, and make sure you have some healing, because otherwise you're just gonna kind of get destroyed. And yeah, just mainly play him for that stall. Hans is a pretty easy one. Either get a height advantage or hide behind your tanks. Try to shoot at headshot level and try to get a few headshots with him. As well, you can E into doorways, and you can shift where you assume that the enemy team's probably going to be and try to shoot them while they're walking through the walls. As well with this, when you have a Zarya on your team, save your ult, use it with a Zarya, and try to combo it. It's really all there is with him. Just try to get those headshots and try to be a bit jank and play pretty defensively. Don't go way too hammer, else you're just going to kill yourself because you don't have any escapes. Junkrat's another hero that's here, and really how you want to play him is know where the key points on the map are and grenade spam there. Just keep shooting there, and the enemy teams will eventually have to walk through there. You'll do a lot of damage, and that's mainly what you have to do. As well with this, you can put your shift and your E on secure locations where the enemy's flankers will try to flank, and you can just blow them up from there. That's your main goal. Really not way too difficult. Now for Mei, you want to make sure that you try to wall off the enemies, be it walling them off into your team so your team can just murder them, or walling them off into the enemy team. As well with this, you do want to play a little bit back. You can be a bit more offensive than, some of the offense heroes in this game, simply because you can press shift, and you can get out of a lot of sticky situations, and you can E yourself out of these situations, but you shouldn't be quite as close as your other tanks. You should stay one step behind your tanks, but one step in front of your soldier and in front of your McCree. That's kind of where you fit. Other than that, just right click at far range, spam a lot of damage, and if you feel pretty good with the character, right click enemies to kill them instead of left clicking and then getting a right click headshot, as that does kill a lot faster, especially if you can just happen to right click twice and double headshot people. Kills a lot faster than freezing someone and then shooting them. As for Torb, his main usefulness is to protect a point, very similar to Bastion. Try to get your turret around a corner where it can shoot the enemy, but they can't easily shoot it back. Or what you can easily do with your turret is actually put it a little bit further back than what they would expect. Make sure that it's not always, shooting at the enemy. And then once they pass a certain point, go in with your team, have a team fight, and have your turret attack from the sidelines. That's what I usually try to do, and it does quite a bit better. As well with this, just always try to snipe people with your left click when you're doing nothing else, and right click to get those headshots. You can get close in, and you can actually one-shot the tanks, which works pretty well. As well with this, don't always stay next to your turret. It tells the enemies exactly where it is, and they're just going to blow it up faster than if you were just somewhere else randomly, because then they won't really be paying attention way too much to where your turret is. And finally, if they blow up your turret once, move it somewhere else, because if they find it once, they're going to know where it is next time, and they're going to blow it up. So always try to move it around, find different spots, and just go from there. For Widow, it's pretty simple. If your team has a Widow and the enemy team has no hit scan, get a height advantage, try to snipe people. If the enemy team has a Widow and a McCree and you're just a Widow by yourself, hide behind the Reinhardt shield and try to shoot people from there. Just try to get headshots with her, stay far behind, and don't get too close or else you're just going to get mauled. As well with this, try to stay next to some of your supports, as if somebody actually tries to flank you both, you can usually kill them. For Diva, she's a pretty simple tank. Play in the front lines, but don't overextend way too much. If the enemies are all on a ledge, don't shift up and go and try to attack them. You're just going to kill yourself. Stay again a little bit in front of your team, but really not way too far ahead of your team. You can sometimes, if you push up a lot with your entire team, stay around corners and try to stop the enemy from going around so you can get a few more seconds on the payload, but that's really kind of it. As well with this, you want to be right next to your Reinhardt, and you probably always want to play with your Reinhardt, and when Reinhardt's shield is running low, you right click, and then you have those 4 seconds, and then Rein can put back up his shield. You can just alternate between that. One of the strongest things. And the final thing you can do is use your ultimate for either spacing or use your ultimate to try to get a combo kill. Really don't just randomly throw it off, I'd say, especially if you're not really way too great at her. Just try to wait for a combo, try to wait for a Zara, try to wait for a Reinhardt, try to wait for anything that'll freeze them, maybe a Mei, and then go for your ult. As well with this, make sure that when you're shooting your ult that you're positioned upward so that you're looking up. Shift and then Q. Try to get it up in the air, as if it's up in the air, it'll have a much higher chance of killing people. They can't hide quite as easily, and yeah, just definitely try to go for that. As far as the next guy, it's going to be Reinhardt, and he's pretty easy. If you don't know exactly how to play him and you don't know how to play him offensively, then just hide next to the cart, hide on the point, have your teammates hide behind you, and hold up that right click. As well, try to shoot your E as best you can. If you can get even 1 or 2 people in your E every time you shoot it out, you're going to get your ult in like 4 or 5 E's. Which is, yeah, that's probably one of the best things to do. Just play defensively. One thing that I feel like a lot of people forget about also with this character before you go into playing him is that you can right click offensively. If you're walking forward with your shield up, that means everyone behind you can keep attacking while you're protecting them all. I feel like a lot of people are always shielding until the team fight goes out, and then they're just swinging right and left, which can be effective, but if you're at a medium-ish range, just make sure to keep holding up that shield. Roadhog is a pretty easy guy to figure out. Make sure to go for those hooks and get those hooks. Honestly, if you aren't getting picks with this character early on in the game, just also switch with him. If you aren't getting those picks, you aren't really helping your team, and you're just kind of really throwing them down the drain, so just switch to an easier tank. Winston is a very different case from the other people, that being that he works great in a dive comp and he doesn't really work way too well any other time. So if you have someone like a Tracer or a Genji, you have a Lucio, you have an Ana, and you got a Winston and then a Diva, you can all jump in, dive the enemy team, and get a kill. Other than that, though, his DPS is pretty low, his shield really isn't the best in the game, and he has no way to recover himself, and he doesn't really have any burst, and his ult, while being okay, isn't the strongest ult in the game either, even for the tanks. So really, pick him if you're going for a dive comp, but otherwise I wouldn't really go for him. Maybe he'll get better in this meta that we're coming into, but right now he's very, very situational. For Zarya, the main thing you got to remember is use your bubbles to save your allies. That's the first thing I want you guys to try to do if you're not really way too great at her. Just wait till your allies are either getting in trouble or if they're just going completely offensive and use your bubble on them, try to save them. If McCree's right next to your teammate and they're probably going to flashbang, use that E and protect them. As well with that, make sure to communicate with your team and try to get ultimate ult slaughters and just try to charge your beam. You have some of the highest DPS in the game, so make sure that you walk into some DPS and use your shift. As well with this though, make sure not to just pre-use your shift. If you don't know if damage is going to come towards you for sure or not, just wait a little bit and use it more reactionary than predictively, as if you use it predictively, you might waste it and then there goes your damage and there goes your shield. Now to the supports, and for Lucio, I'd say just try to survive. You can either jump around the field, especially if you're on King of the Hill, just jump around the corners of the map, that works really well, and have your healing going up. Or as well with this, you can just hide behind your team. I've had a few games where I've had like 500, ping, and I'm just AFK behind my team pretty much. But I'm using my E, I'm healing my team up, and we still win the game. So you can definitely try to do that. As well with this, if you're feeling a little bit confident, try to boot people off. But honestly, if you're not really great as the character, just play defensively and try not to be picked. As well though, do make sure that you try to remember that you actually have a speed boost. And when your teammates are going ham on the enemy team, go for that speed boost, get in there quick, and kind of surprise them when they aren't expecting it. And it's actually a pretty easy support to play. You stay behind your team, and you heal them. If you do want to become a very good player, of course, you shoot the enemy team, you do all these different plays, but if you're just playing at the bare minimum, if your team just needs an Ana, use your E on your teammates, shoot and heal them, and then go for an ultimate when the time seems right, or when your teammates ask for that ultimate. Just play defensively, don't go really way too ham, and of course, you can't try to shoot those fairies that are up in the sky. You work really well for that too. For Mercy, when you don't have your ultimate, just kind of heal your team. Stay far back and just heal them. And then when you actually do have your ultimate, well, stay far back behind your team even more, hide behind a wall, wait until your team gets wiped, run around the corner, use your ult, and be a great Mercy player. I'd say really when you have your ultimate, don't even bother to heal for the majority of the time. Of course, if the enemy is trying to do this very, very, very slow push where they pick off your, damage very, very slowly and just try to chip them, then you can try to heal. But if the enemy team has like any aggression, just hide behind, wait until they go in, and then revive your team, because otherwise you might just waste it, and it's better that you get a good revive than just a little bit of healing. For Symetra, you can spam your right clicks at far range, or you can stand very nearby all your tanks and try to get a lot of damage on the enemy tanks. If you don't really want to play close up, well, what you can easily do is place your sentries off to the side and use yourself as an anti-flanker. Just put your sentries where, people usually come by, and when that sentry gets destroyed, go over there and just kill whoever killed it. Finally, you have two options for your ultimate. You can either put it pretty far back and hope that no one finds it, or you can put it right next to your team in a pretty safe position, and then flankers can't kill it, but if you get swept, well, you're gonna die and your turret's gonna be gone. So, it depends on the situation, just kind of go with what your gut's telling you. Finally, with Zenyatta, make sure to always stay with your teammates, and tell your teammates who you are discording if you are in voice chat. Then your teammates can all focus on that guy and you can just take them out. Finally, don't preemptively actually use your ultimate, as I feel like a lot of Zenyatas are thinking that a lot of damage is going to come in. They press their ultimate, and then the enemy team just saves all their ults, Zenyatta's ult runs out, and then you're kind of screwed. Instead, wait until that soldier actually starts to ult, and then go for yours. It will completely stop that damage. You have a very high impact ult, but it's a little bit hard to use, so just wait a little bit more with it, and don't be quite as liberal with the usage. And there we go, that's all of the different characters in this game. Sorry that there's so much, sorry that this video is so long, and thank you anyone that went all the way through the video. I'm sure it's a minority of people, because, most people already know a lot of the characters, but if you did learn anything about these different characters, make sure to tell me in the comment section down below. As well, if you made it to the end, just say, Shabalaga, and however you want to spell that, we can see how many people actually made it down here, and you can be part of the cool kids club if you made it all the way to the end. Anyways, thank you guys for watching. As always, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and as always, have a wonderful day.